You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week we are covering The Black Girl Survives in this one by Desiree S. Evans.
Yes.
But it's an anthology. So there are several authors, which I had no idea because I started reading and was like, because I don't read the blurbs. But Keely, how's your week been?
My week has been a week. I mean, not much, really. Went to Tristan's T-ball. I do Tristan's 4. This is his first year playing T-ball.
Carter's too.
Gosh, and he did better
Aww.
yesterday at practice than what he normally does. But he loves to sit and pick at the grass and play in the dirt and stuff like that. But other than that, not really much of anything.
That's funny. You said T-ball. I don't even know if he has practice. This coordination for this team that Carter's on is horrible. My week has been chaotic. I leave on my honeymoon in 2 days, so I'm stressed out. We were talking about all of my overpacking and my paranoias and all of that, but I'm very excited. So there is that. Also, I lied. I didn't lie last time. So last time I said there was 2 books between the last book and the third Crescent City, but I actually added an episode because we're gonna do a mid-year review episode. So there are only 2 books, but there's 3 episodes between that. So I was like, let me say that, because in the last one I said that there was just going to be 2. But we're going to do a mid-year review. So that'll be the first July episode will be a mid-year kind of review, check-in, update, whatever. I don't know. I don't have thoughts yet. But I'll work on that when I get back from my honeymoon. So Keely has the blurb.
Be warned, dear reader, the black girl survives in this one. Celebrating a new generation of essential black writers from best-selling voices to breakout stars, the black girl survives in this one makes space for black girls in horror. 15 chilling and thought-provoking stories place black girls front and center as heroes and survivors who slay monsters both human and supernatural, battle spirits, and face down death. From slashers to space horror to ghost stories to reimaginings of folk tales, this collection taps into a rich history of cultural folklore and campfire traditions while leaning into the nostalgia of beloved 90s horror. Except this time, the final girls are black, prepared to be terrified and left breathless by this expansive and thrilling pieces in this anthology.
Oh, so if you could describe this book in one word, what would you say?
I would say that I was not prepared for that. So give me just a second.
That's fine. I don't know what I could sum it up as to be. Maybe, I don't know. I just think it's cool. I don't know. I don't have a good word. Let me think.
I'll just go with awesome.
Yeah, it's just so cool. It's weird. We've never done a book like this. I obviously do not read the blurbs. Had no idea that this was an anthology. That's what that's called, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I really got into the first one and I was like, why is this something different?
I think the first one is one of my favorites. It was a great first one to start.
Yeah, no, it really was. So I was like, what? And then I was so invested and I'm like, it's an anthology. I don't not like them, but I just get into them and then it's a new book. That's it.
I think so far this has been my favorite anthology that I've
read. It's really good. There was only maybe one that I was I didn't really like that one.
Yeah.
But for the most part, no, they're really good. There's 15. So we'll see how this episode goes because I'm just going to review them like I do other ones, but each 10-minute segment is going to be a different book or short story. So in general summary, this is a anthology of 15 short stories. They're all horror, scary, thriller type stories. And it was comforting to me because I am a weenie And so, like, I purposely, like, listen to podcasts and watch TikToks that spoil scary things before I watch them because, like, the older I get, the more of a scaredy cat I am. So it was comforting to me because, like, I knew that the black girl survived in every one of these. Like, I knew that she wasn't dying. So I was like, no matter what, I was like, this is good. So, spoiler alert, not a spoiler. The black girl survives in this one. Every single one of them, there's black girl and she survives. So if you know nothing else, but these like some of them are like, most of them are like late teen, early adult age. Yeah. Lots of like late high school. Is this considered a YA?
It's considered YA, but I'd say it leans more like new adult. YA, new adult.
Yeah, it's a good mix. I think like the youngest was like middle school. I feel like there was one maybe. But yeah, they're like that age. Folklore, supernatural, demon shifter, a little bit of racism. I kind of guess I'm doing some triggers, but yeah, so that's kind of like what it covers. I mean, that's pretty much it for a general summary. There's not a lot I can say. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's a quick read or listen, and I just thought it was fun. So I don't know. There's like, it's long, but I do like encourage you to read the foreword or listen to the foreword in this. It's pretty good. Yeah. Just kind of explaining like why they wanted that final girl to be black, and like, I mean, everyone pretty much knows the trope of like the black people die in the scary movies, which is just because I think we're smart and that we would not participate in these activities. Because as soon as a lot of these things go on, I'm like, I'm going home. I'm out of here.
I say that, and then I'm like, also find myself running headfirst into the spooky stuff. So
well, Keely's alone because I'm out of here. When people's houses start doing weird things, where they're like, "Well, stick it out, John." No, John, I'm leaving.
So I guess I do have something to report from.
Oh no.
So for those of you, I don't even know if we've really talked about the ghost in the bookstore at the last bookstore.
It's been a while. I mean, we haven't been in the old bookstore, but there's a few episodes of us like being creeped out.
But I'm pretty sure we have a ghost at my house. Like, I'm pretty sure.
How long have you guys lived there?
Like 11 years.
When did this ghost appear? Recently?
I would say probably the first time was about 10 years ago.
Oh no.
It started with Peyton. Okay, Peyton.
Is this a nice ghost? No.
We've not had too much trouble with it.
Okay, so Peyton's where it started.
So one night she said that she felt something scratch her and blah blah blah, and we're like, no, you're fine. There wasn't anything on her. But then shortly after that, she found a friend in the closet. She was her imaginary friend named Selena. And Selena was a troublemaker, and my mom said, tell Selena she has to get out of here and she's not allowed to come back unless she asks permission. And we never heard from her again. Peyton literally was only friends with Selena for like a week.
Selena.
Well, a handful of years ago, pre-Tristan, so over 4 years ago, one night my mom called me into her bedroom. And when I open up the door, I see like this black mass flying around. And so I slam the door and jump in her bed with her and cover up. When we get the courage to look, it's not there anymore. And then maybe a couple of years after that, we were in the dining room. And so the dining room connects to the kitchen, and there's the little doorway to the laundry room. So sitting in the dining room, I can see in the laundry room, but then we also have a hallway that kind of like connects it all. Anyways, we're sitting there and I see a black mass like go past the doorway, and then Jovi sees it too. Jovi and I are the only ones. Jovi's my dog, by the way. We're the only ones that see it, and the hair on my mom's arms like stick up. She gets goosebumps, and it sounds like something falls in there. So I jump up.
You need some sage.
I have.
Oh, God.
I have. And we haven't had any issues for a while.
You have to do it annually.
So I jumped up. Jovi and I both jumped up and ran in there, and there was nothing. Well, last night, so Tristan has night terrors. So he, like, screams a lot in his sleep. a lot of the times he's like, help me. Well, last night he started screaming for help, and I went to reach for him, and he's sliding down the bed. I kid you not. Like, he's not wiggling or, like, shuffling. He's straight sliding. And, like, as soon as I, like...
Oh, you guys can't see my face. I have to post this one.
As soon as I grab onto him, he stops. Well, and then not even a minute later, he starts crying because he peed himself. And then, so I'm like, well, I have to take him into...
No.
Or get him out of my room so I can change the sheets. So I get him cleaned up and put in my mom's room. And my mom said that he started whining, and she was like, what's wrong? And he was like, what is that? Do you see that? And she was like, see what? He said that thing moving on the table on her desk. And she's like, there's nothing there, Bubba. He said, there's not? And she was like, no. There's nothing there. And he was like, it's not going to get me?
That's that TikTok sound. What fucking lady? No, ma'am. No.
Yeah.
Call the church. Call the sage warriors.
So when I got him up to change him, my mom got up because she heard him crying. And I was like, so what would you do if, like, the ghost was messing with somebody? And she was like, what happened to you? And I was like, what would you do? She was like, I don't know. And so I told her, and she was like,
call the ghost authorities immediately. I know I would say I would move, but, like, obviously you can't just, like, leave your house. But, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I would be freaked out.
I have a camera with night vision, so
I don't know, but I almost don't want to see it. I almost don't want to see it.
That's my thing. I'm trying to figure out, like, do I want to? But at the same time,
gosh.
Do I want to?
Oh my god. Okay, well, please keep me updated. I need to know. Because, oh my goodness. Well, you guys pray for Keely.
We need it.
Oh gosh. Well, that was our pre-episode stuff. So I'm stressed out. I'm gonna go ahead and get into the spoilers. So if you have not read any of these little short stories or this book, and you don't want to be spoiled, this is your cue to stop here, come back later. And if not, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the first story is called Harvesters by L.L. McKinney. And we open up to two girls. One girl her name is Jo. I think her name is Jo. She is getting ready to have a night out with her friend Missy. And she basically gets like a hey big head text from like her boyfriend Eddie, who Eddie apparently has been like kind of ghosting her for weeks. They're in high school, I believe. And like he always like, oh, I can't come. I got something. I can't come. I got every time it's time to like go on a date or whatever. So Missy's like, well, you could just talk to Brandon. Like, he's, like, got eyes on you, all this stuff. And she's like, you know, Eddie isn't, like, he's been ghosting you, yada, yada, yada. So they go to a party, and, like, Missy, like, walks her over to where Brandon is, and then, like, ditches her, so she's basically stuck talking to Brandon. So they do talk, and it goes on, like, 30 minutes, and she's like, where is Missy? Like, and she's, like, worried about her. So she also, like, doesn't really want to be talking to Brandon. Like, she wants to talk to Brandon, but she doesn't want to cheat on Eddie. And she considers this to be cheating. So she's like, she feels kind of bad, but they do exchange numbers. So, she, like, texts Missy. She doesn't respond. She's like, okay, I have to find her. But then she, like, gets a text. She's like, I'm good. Like, I'm over here talking. She's talking to this boy named Mason. And she's, like, drunk. And so is Mason. And Brandon thinks, like, he smells gas, but, like, they kind of just, like, brush it off. So all of a sudden, a boy named Reggie, like, knocks Jo over, and like he's like, I'm looking for the fire extinguisher, and all of a sudden the couch in like the house catches fire, and they're like out in the country at this house. So like party's over, everybody gotta go home. Like, you know, you burnt my house down. Well, they burn up the couch. So like in the like scuffle, Missy loses her car keys, and she was going to give Brandon a ride if he helped look. So Brandon helped looks, Mason looks, they can't find the keys. So now they're all stranded. So Mason's like, I can give you a ride, we got to walk to my house. So they start walking to Mason's, and like, again, they're in the country, so it's like pitch black, it's like midnight, And he's like, we can cut across this like pasture and through this cornfield to shorten the walk. And immediately I said, absolutely not. I'm not walking through nothing. Have y'all not seen Into the Tall Grass? So while they're walking, Brandon asks, like, I missed this part. It's been like 2 years since Brandon and her talked. So he's like asking her like, oh, like, has anything changed about you? And he puts his jacket on her. And like when she turns to see him like do it, she sees something, but like then it's gone. Like she doesn't know what she sees, but like she saw something. So they keep walking and he asks her like, are you talking to anyone? And she like doesn't know how to answer it because like technically she is, but like kind of not because he's ghosting her. So then she notices like Missy and Mason are gone, but they were like just right in front of them. But then like they pop out of the cornfield and they're like, come on, like whatever. So they get into this like cornfield and it is pitch black. And I said, hell no, back out. But she is walking and like she can see Missy and Mason in front of her. And she gets a text. And the text is from Missy and it says, where are you at? Did we lose you? And she's looking and Missy's right in front of her, not holding her phone, not texting. So she texts her and says, I'm right behind you. But Missy still doesn't grab her phone. And then she gets a response from Missy and Missy says, we're sitting on Mason's porch. His house is huge. Like, do you guys need a minute? Like, are you hooking up or something like that? So she shows Brandon her phone and his eyes get really big. And then they notice that Missy and Mason are like no longer walking and they're like, what's going on? And so she's like, oh, like I just want to spend some time with Brandon. And Missy says, well, we shouldn't leave you out here alone. And it starts to sound like she's like hissing. And then Missy texts again and then calls. And the fake Missy is like, are you going to answer that? So she answers it and she's like, hi, Mom. But Missy's like, girl, why you calling me Mom? And Missy's like, are you drunk? And then fake Missy, her like body starts changing. And so does Mason's. And they like have fangs and claws. And Brandon grabs her and is just like, run, run, run. So she's like running, falling. They hear all this hissing around them. Something grabs her and she like kicks, fights. She's like running, falling all over again. And then all of a sudden someone's saying like, Joe, Joe. And she looks up and it's Missy asking her like, why did you kick me? And she realizes she's like in Mason's like yard. And they're like looking at her super confused and she starts crying. And then Brandon comes out of the like cornfield saying, thank God. And I was like, side eye. I don't trust it. So she like goes up, hugs him. And she's like, he smelled like blood and dirt. Which is a weird combination. And like she just starts crying, but like she doesn't tell like Missy and Mason like what happened. So Missy finds her phone on the ground and they go ahead and get in Mason's car. And as they're driving, she gets a text from Eddie asking like how the party was. And then she gets a text from Brandon that says, I got out. Where are you? The end.
I think that was a great one to start.
That was good. It was so good. I was like, I wanted more. I was ready for the attack in the back seat or whatever.
That was unnerving the whole time.
I got goosebumps.
It was a great one.
I got goosebumps. All right. The next one is called Welcome to the Cosmos by Courtney Nash. So this one, it's so funny. The names, like there are a lot of like Sarah J. Maas like names in here. So we are introduced to Danica and she is out in space and she's talking to her mom like on a hologram. It gave me very much like Xenon, girl of the 21st century. And so basically Danica's job is she's an observer with a group of like 3 other people and they just like sit in their spaceship and they watch for like debris, abandoned spaceships, facilities, and dead bodies. So there are both like private and government companies who are trying to colonize space, like, you know, like they are in the real world. And her mom doesn't like that she's up there, even though like that's what Danica went to school for. And she says to her that people always come back strange and some people don't come back at all. But Danica assures her mom, like, I'll be back in time for my sister's birthday. And like they hang up. So she's looking out the window and she sees a spacesuit and it like intrigues her. And so as like the spaceship like passes this suit, she like waves at it and it waves back. So she meets up with the rest of the crew and there's Paloma, Jared, and I have the other one's name written down somewhere. There's another guy. But they're all gonna go, or there's 4 of them and 3 of them are going to go check out this facility. Mo. Yeah. So they like rotate who goes, like one person stays behind each time. And like, she's kind of like the Ariel of the group. Like she collects weird stuff. It's a doppelganger or whatever she called it. So they aren't technically allowed to like go off the ship, but that's why one of them stays behind and they like still drive around in their like orbit. So like if they're tracked, they're still moving and all of that. So they're going to this abandoned facility and it was basically shut down because all of the workers just mysteriously disappeared one day. Why would you go in there? I don't want to go in there. So they get there and again, Danica thinks she sees something out of the corner of her eye, but hey, they keep going. So she sees like this room that has like a cabinet kind of blocking it and like it has like dentures and like weird stuff in it that intrigues her. So she goes into that room and like she has to slide between the cabinet and the doorway to like just get in there. And she feels like she's being watched and then her flashlight dies. And she hears a door shut behind her, but it's weird because sound doesn't travel in space. So she shouldn't hear anything. So she gets on like her like intercom in her suit and she asks Mo and Paloma if they have batteries and they're like, no, too bad. Like, you're scared of the dark, whatever. So Paloma tells her she found this paragravity switch, which I don't really know. It's like synthetic gravity that people were trying to market or whatever. And she like flips it a few times. It doesn't do anything. And Mo's like, I found something too. I found peanut M&Ms. And so Danica cannot get back out the way she came because it's like, she can't see, she can't feel for it. So she decides to crawl through this like shaft to just like see who she can like get close to. And she finds a room with like a weird pool filled with some like weird liquid. And like she asks like, hey guys, like I found this stuff, but no one's responding to her. So she starts to like move back out of this room and she thought it was her reflection, but then her reflection moves at her and like lunges, like attacking her. So she's like fighting this suit. It's somebody in a suit. Like she's fighting them back. They like are punching her in her helmet, like hitting her hot oxygen tube. She's like, I'm going to die. It's going to like disconnect my stuff. But she has like a letter opener that she grabbed. So she gets it and like jabs at the suit. And then she's able to knock the helmet off of the suit, but there's no head. And then she hears a scream and she goes back to the lobby and makes it back to the lobby somehow. And she finds Paloma and Mo and she's like, who was that? And they're like, what are you talking about? They have no idea. They didn't hear any scream. Like, they don't know anything. So they go back to the ship. She calls her mom and she's like, okay, what exactly did you hear about people going missing? And her mom basically says like, there's some things that stills faces and grabs bodies. And so she's in her room. Like, she's like, did I hallucinate? But her hand is sore. Like, obviously she was in a fight. And she has like a hold of a patch from the suit that attacked her. So she goes out to like see the other two. And like Paloma and Mo, like they come out, like they're like laughing and they're like, that's what you got. You brought back a patch. Like, ha 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 ha. And so she's like, it's weirding her out. So she goes back to her room. She locks herself in her room. She looks out the window and she sees something like neon green and human shaped floating outside with no helmet. The end.
What do you think of that one?
That one was kind of weird. I kind of didn't like get every like bit of it. I was like, I mean, I understand it's a body snatcher. I was like kind of confused during like the fight scene part, but yeah, I don't want to go to space.
No, I think that's the space part in general is what really creeps me out.
Yeah, I don't want to go in space or under the water. Like either one of those, I want my feet on planet Earth, on the ground, in the soil. I don't want it anywhere else.
I feel you.
All right, the next one is called Ghostlight by Eric E. Adams. And this is Janine. So Janine is working the lights on a stage production. She's a sophomore and is the production stage manager, which is like really unheard of for a sophomore to do it. And it's her first like time working alone. It's opening night and they're doing Macbeth, I believe. And so like she's like really focused, trying to focus on this, but she misses a like cue that she's supposed to do the lights. And Sarah is up there working with her. She's a senior and she's like, oh, did you see like a ghost? Because everyone says that every theater's haunted basically. So the witches in the play start to do their little spell. And there's another boy up there named Tim. And he's like, this spell is real. And that's why it's scary. But like Sarah doesn't believe it or whatever. And he's like, it's harmless as long as they like complete the spell and like close it or whatever. But in the middle of their scene, the light on the stage like blows out. And so the actors scream and there's smoke everywhere. Everyone's fine. But like now the actors are like messing up. They can't finish like their scene. So like basically like Jenny kind of like just moves them forward like out of that scene and like jumps ahead a little bit. So Sarah's super happy about this because she like wanted to be the manager, and now Janine's messing up on her first time. So the show finishes, and also like because they like skipped a scene, Tim had told them like you guys have to like turn in a circle and like spit over your shoulder or something like 3 times, like some kind of superstitious stuff or whatever. But like Sarah wouldn't do it. No one would do it. So the show finishes, and she wants to talk to Sarah like about like everything that happened, but Sarah just like runs off, and like she runs through like groups of people, and they're like talking about how, oh, I can't believe Janine messed up like that. So like Sarah's like loving this. So that like everyone leaves, and so Janine's there by herself. She has to like reset everything for the night, and they're like, just make sure you leave like the ghost light on. So a girl comes up and like taps her and says her name. And this girl, like, she hasn't seen her before, and she has like long black hair, and she's like, I don't know her, but like the makeup department, maybe like they have a bunch of like strange people like that she hasn't seen before. So she's like, whatever, maybe she's from there. And the girl says her name is Mary. And she's like looking for her phone, and she looks up, and the girl has it. And she's not like scrolling. She's just like staring at the phone, like so intrigued by it. And she doesn't even like move. And she's like, well, can you like help me sweep or whatever? But the girl doesn't move. So she just leaves her with her phone, and she's like, I'm going to go finish what I'm doing or whatever. And she asks the girl, like, are your parents waiting for you? And she's like, I can give you a ride. But she's like, can I get my phone back? But the girl like grabs onto the phone like, no, you can't have your phone back. And then she looks really sad. So Janine's like, okay, like, let me show you something cool. So she goes up and like gets the lights together, and she puts the ghost light just on the girl. And Mary asks, like, why is it called a ghost light? And she says, every theater has a ghost. They're harmless. But then Janine like reaches up and scratches the bulb, and it bursts. So that the whole like stage goes black, and all she can see is the light of her phone. And she starts walking toward it. But Mary has like walked out over where like, if you don't know anything about a theater, like the pit area is like where the band normally sits and like plays down in the pit. So it's like that part of the stage in the front that like sinks down. So Mary is like the way, like she basically is walking towards Mary, but she realizes her feet are at the edge of the stage, and Mary is floating over the pit. And Mary asks, what happens if you don't keep the ghost company? And then like yanks her, trying to pull her into the like pit, but Janine manages to pull her back. And she says, you're supposed to keep me company, and then drops her phone down into the pit. And that is when Janine realizes Mary's a ghost and she wants a companion. So she starts thinking about like how her parents aren't going to come looking for her because they knew she had to like do this stuff tonight. And then the lights like just start like popping and falling on the stage like above her. And she remembers that the play didn't finish the witch scene and close the door. So she turns over her shoulder like 3 times and like does the whole spitting thing. And she's able to like navigate the stage in the dark, but she falls in stage blood, and like Mary just keeps like knocking these lights down on top of her. And Mary says, I need you to stay here with me, Janine. And she decides like, okay, I'm going to go through the pit to get out because I can't get out this way. So she jumps down the pit and she breaks her ankle. And she's like, you know what? I'm not going to run. I'm going to fight. So she knows like, she doesn't know the stage as well, but she knows like under the stage. If you've never, I'm a band geek. I was in band, so I played in the pit. Like I know what it's like to like go under the stage, and like they keep all kinds of like stuff down there. So she gets a replacement bulb and like goes to screw it in for the ghost light, and she starts reciting the spell from the play to close the spell, and then she gets the bulb in and the light is on. The end. So Mary, scary Mary, she wanted a friend. Yeah. I would not have been there by myself though. Like somebody Absolutely has not. To stay and help me. Like, what do you mean you all went home?
Right, and isn't there like the theater teacher?
Yeah, like an adult. Like they just left you in the building by yourself. You're a child.
Right, and locking up like.
Yeah, like you're a child. You can't like. There has to be somebody else. That's so weird.
Yeah.
All right, this next one actually I think was like one of my favorites.
Yeah.
This is the Brides of Devil's Bayou, which is by Desiree S. Evans. So why can't I remember? It's not Asia. It's Aja. How do you, I don't know how she spelled it in the book. Aja, that's what it is. I'm like, I know it's not Asia. Aja. So Aja is dreaming of like this like toothless, scary girl. And she wakes up and she's in her old home. She's 18. She goes to college, but she's back in her home that she hasn't been in since she was 12. And her 19th birthday is in 2 days. She's been gone for 7 years, but she's been having these nightmares about this cursed place for like over a year. And her therapist thought like it's going to be best if you just go back home and like face it basically. So she's ignoring her dad's calls because her dad is the one who like took her away from this place and never wanted her to come back. And so she like doesn't want to tell him like where she's at. But this house is basically, it was her grandma's and it's on her mom's family's land. And she like wakes up from this nightmare and then she sees her grandma like in her rocking chair. And her grandma says, like basically says that they're going to come for her. And she says, like, now that you're a woman, that demon is going to make you his bride. And she's like, Grandma, hush, like, whatever. And so basically, there's like this backstory that her great-great-great-grandma or ancestor, Mosey, made a pact with a demon for her freedom because she was a slave. And so in exchange for freedom and safety, he could have 5 generations of the eldest daughter of their family. And so she, like, whispers the names of all of the other like women who have disappeared on their 19th birthday, and basically they just like walked into the bayou and were never seen again. And she is supposed to be the 5th generation, so she's the oldest daughter of the 5th generation. And like the town knows about the curse, like everybody knows like this family is cursed. But her therapist said that this story was just like a way for her family to like make sense of tragedy. It's not real. And her grandma died 2 years ago and left this house to her, but her father had forbid her from coming home. But, you know, she's an adult now, so she can. So her grandma's ghost says, you need to find the bone and send it home. And so then she sees a teenage girl outside in like a white bloody dress and has like, there's 2 snakes crawling out of her eye sockets. And then the girl just like collapses on the like ground outside and starts like crawling towards her. And she's like, you gotta wake up, you gotta wake up, you gotta wake up. And she does. And so she feels safe and she feels like she's finally home, and she goes to make breakfast. And her friend Latricia is there with her. She came to like celebrate her birthday with her. And she asks Aja. I should have spelled it with a J. It's probably AJ. Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I just guess so. Aja. That helps so much. So Latricia asks Aja, like, do you believe in like the stories? And she says no. And Latricia says, I don't know, like your demon's an old one and like your dreams have just gotten worse the older you get. And Aja sees like a dead teenage girl outside and she just closes her eyes like it's not real. And she opens them and the girl is gone. So one of their neighbors, Miss Louisa, comes over like bringing food, and she tells her she's worried about her because her birthday's tomorrow. But Aja says like, you know, I don't believe in that. And Miss Louisa tells her how Aja's mom ran off scared of the demon, even though her mom was the youngest, so like she wasn't an issue. And she says that her grandma knew your dad never believed, and basically says like even your dad taking you away wouldn't have stopped that demon from coming to get you. And then Miss Louisa looks in like at her palm, and she looks at her lifeline and says, that's strange. He's already been visiting you. And she tells her, find the bone and send it home. But she says it kind of like she's in a trance. And Aja asks her, like, what did you say? But she just shakes her head and says, like, I think your Meemaw left you something in this house. And then Aja sees movement on the couch now that Miss Louisa leaves. And she's alone. And so there's a sheet on the couch that starts, like, lifting up. And it looks like it has the shape of a woman underneath it. And basically, like, all the girls that she's been seeing, they keep saying, like, numbers to her. Like, 1, 2, 3. So the one on the couch this time says 4. And that night, she can't sleep at all. She's just laying in bed. She's afraid. And, like, she thinks she's dreaming. And then she hears a whisper saying, do you hear me? Will you let me in? And I say, no, I will not let you in. And she says, you're not real. And it says, look up, I'm real. And then, and she does, because I would have been like, I'm not looking at nothing. My eyes are sewn shut. I don't see anything. So she looks up and she sees like moving shadows turning into a figure with yellow eyes. And this demon like crawls over her, smells like rot. And then she sees 4 teenage women with broken bodies looking at her, and they like point towards the ground. And she sees them then like almost like flashbacks of their memories. Like she sees them alive before they die. And she realizes that these are all her ancestors. And then they all start screaming, and the demon seems angry and like slashes her thigh. And she wakes up and the slash is there and she's bleeding. So she goes to the kitchen, like Latricia bandages her up, and they like look around the house. They're like, okay, maybe you like sleptwalk and you ran into something, but they can't find any way like that would happen or any other explanation. So that night they just stay up and they're like researching, like, what can they do? What is this? And so now it's her birthday. So Latricia reads that each girl had like visions, dreams, and hallucinations leading up to their birthday, and then they disappeared on the night of their birthday. And so now they've like searched the house and they can't find any bone. But Latricia says, well, it's not over till it's over. So like we can keep trying. So then they try like different rituals throughout that day, like getting holy water and like trying to like ward the house of the demon. Man, we are going to get some holy water. So Aja remembers that the girls pointed at the floor last night in her room, and she runs there wondering if there's something under the house. And she remembers her grandma used to be under the house all the time because it's like 6 feet off the ground. It's like Louisiana, like it floods down there. So her grandma used to bury like these luck bags under the house. So she crawls under there, which I ain't doing that either. I'm not going, a crawl space, I'm not, no. But she goes into the house and there's like rocks in a circle and like it's under the center of the house. And she hears hissing and it feels like the demon is nearby, but she unburies this tin can. And as she crawls out, like she can tell like the demon is like raging and like a storm is coming. So they run. And Aja leaves Latricia outside because she's like, I'm going to go in, I'm going to do a spell. And she opens the can and there's a finger bone. And she realizes it is her Mima's. So her grandma cut off her finger for a banishment spell. And I'm like, oof, that was ouch. So the demon says, come to me, and like grabs her, dragging her as she says like, I'm not yours. And she can hear her Mima saying, banish him now. And she just starts like shouting. And he says, mine, as she says, you can't have me. I banish you. She says, the deal is broken. You are no longer bound to my family. And the demon releases her and she stabs it in the chest with the bone and he like dissipates. And she says, we did it. We're free. And it is almost morning. So she made it through the night. The end.
I really liked that one.
Yeah, that one was creepy. I liked it.
Creepy.
I love
it. Kind of was, and it's probably just the setting.
Yeah, I love a
Louisiana.
bayou. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kind of the skeleton key.
Yeah, I was gonna say skeleton key. Like I love the skeleton key. Like, yes, I love a creepy bayou story. The next one is called TMI, and I think it's Zakiya Dalila Harris, I believe. So I feel like some of these, they talk so long before they ever tell you like what the people's name is. Sam. It's Sam. Okay. This one was kind of a long one, I feel like. So, and I feel like it didn't circle back to this little part. Oh, that was the man. Oh, I'm just putting that together. Yeah, because I was like, wait a minute, it never circled back to this, but I like, oh, that makes sense. Okay, so this is Sam, and she is in the park, like, reading, and a man comes up, like, what's up, baby, like, all that stuff, and she's like, normally I would entertain this, but I've got time today. So she asks him, like, do you have time for a story? Knowing, like, he's out catcalling women, like, of course he's gonna sit here. So she says, have you ever heard of Etta V? And so Etta V is like a famous person, like everybody does know who she is. And she went to like the local school, which is Beacon Prep, and that's the school that Sam goes to. And basically like during her junior year, Etta became like super famous. She like came back to like do a meet and greet at the school. So in person, Sam says like Etta wasn't very impressive at all. Like she seemed scared. She couldn't remember her words when she was talking. And like the like auditorium was like packed to see this girl, and then like they were all like super disappointed, like why is she like that? So after the like meet or whatever that was, the meet and greet, she has like a table set up, but like everyone's like super disappointed, so like no one's at this table. So she goes to like the table and she goes to talk to her, and so she's like, like they have a little bit of a talk about like what Sam likes to do, and she reads and all this stuff. And Etta's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to give you a signed autograph book like on the house. Here you go. And Sam's like, can I take a photo with you? And then Etta is excited because Sam pulls out her little red flip phone because she's not hip like all the other kids. And Etta's like, oh, we have the same phone, and shows her they have the same red flip phone. So she gives her a hug and like wishes Sam like the best of luck because like she's a junior and she'll be graduating soon. And she like, goes, like you almost forgot your phone. So she gives her her phone. So she goes home, and that night her mom's boyfriend is over. His name's like Nigel, and she like just hates when he's over. And her phone had been dead like since first period, so she's just now turning it back on. And she opens it and she notices the background's different. It's like a sun. And then she hears like a bunch of whispers, and it gets like super loud in her ears until her ears pop, and then it sounds normal again, but the TV is like super loud. And she hears something say like, I can't wait to take these buttons off this woman. And she's like, Nigel, can you turn the TV down? And her mom and Nigel look at her like, what are you talking about? And then she hears, I wish Sam had somewhere to go. And her mom says, Sam, the TV's not on. And she's like, I can hear it. Like, what? And her mom's like, is this like a cry for attention? And then she hears her mom's go like, her mom starts to say something like, I should have listened or something like that. But she's looking at her mom and her mom's mouth is not moving. And then Nigel thinks like, Sam should lighten up. I bet she's never even gotten. And Sam goes, air. I've never gotten air, because she realizes that this phone has done something to her and she is hearing their thoughts. So she's like, okay, I think Edda's swapped phones with me on accident. So she goes outside to get her air and she hears a man say like, it's not smart to sit out here all alone where no one can hear you scream. And she looks up and there's a man like barreling towards her. So she like gets her fist ready. And the man's thinking like, there sure are a lot of weirdos out here. And she goes, stay the hell away from me. And then she hears like a bark and the man's like, what is your problem? Like, I'm just walking my dog. And she realizes she knows this man and he's like, are you okay? And she's like, no, I'm not. And he walks off thinking like, damn black kids always causing problems. So she like is like, okay, I'm definitely hearing their thoughts. And she's like, I'm not going to make it. Like, I cannot handle this. So she throws the phone out into traffic and she wakes up in the middle of the night hearing Nigel's thoughts about having sex with her mom. And she's like, gag me. And she's like, I absolutely cannot go back to sleep now. Like, thank you. That has ruined my entire life. So she turns her light on, turns to like her bedside table, and the red phone is sitting there unbroken, perfectly fine. So this time she's like, okay, I'm going to put it in a cup of water. And she's dreading going to school today because she's like, I cannot think about listening to all these people's thoughts. But she gets on the bus and it's going good. So she sits down. She's like kind of falling asleep. And all of a sudden she hears the bus driver go, I wonder what would happen if I just drove into oncoming traffic or like off a bridge. Not with me on this bus, lady.
No, thank you.
And she's like, okay, these are just thoughts. People don't always act on their thoughts. And she's like, maybe I should go up there and talk to her, like, and reassure her not to kill us all. And the phone just like reappears like in her pocket. And this time she gets a text from an unknown number. And she's like, she's afraid to open it again, but she like reads it. And it says, you survived your first night. Let's celebrate tonight. I'll be at Brashears Diner. And it just signed like with the letter E. So she's like, okay, forget school. Like, I'm going to meet this lady. And she's like, okay, just focus on myself. And she's like looking around. She's like, I don't see her anywhere. And then she hears, yes, Sam, it took me like time to figure that out, like how to center yourself. And she spots Edda, but she looks completely different. She has a hat on and like all these piercings that she didn't have the day before. And Edda says like, the first night's always hard, but you just have to learn how to adapt. And Sam says, I don't want to adapt. And so Edda's like kind of surprised. And Edda says, well, the phone came to me in my senior year because like she had always wanted to be a writer, but she really just didn't have like the ideas like to do it. And she's like, the phone opened the world to me. She says, it changed my life for the better. And I want to be your mentor, because she had a mentor. And she mentioned someone named Phil. And she's like, you could move to Connecticut and like get a 1-bedroom apartment, be his assistant. Like, it's a good job to have with this talent. And like, you can work on quieting the voices. And she... like, Sam asks Edda, why do you want to give me this? And she realizes that she hasn't heard any of Edda's thoughts since she came in here. And Edda says, I told you, like, I'm good now. It gave me everything I want. I have more than I need. I want to help you. But it just seems weird. And Sam says, I think you just can't handle it anymore. And she's like, you seem super stressed out like yesterday at the school. So she pulls out the phone and Edda says, I swear to God, Sam, if you hand me that phone. And she like, Sam takes the phone back and she's like, fine. I just hope you can live with the fact that you ruined my life. And so as Sam leaves, Edda calls out to her and she's like, okay, wait. She says like, you can't destroy it and I can't take it back, but I can find someone else for you to give it to. And so she circles back to the beginning where she's talking to this man about the phone. And he's like, that's a wild story, like, whatever. So she's like, well, tell me a number and I bet I can guess it. The end. Yeah, I was like, okay, I would love to read people's thoughts, but, like, only if I can control it. Like, yeah. I don't want to constantly, like you're wearing the like, not Iron Flame, the Fourth Wing shirt, and I was thinking about whatever they call them in the Fourth Wing, like, when they, like, kill them, because they're like, I can't handle it.
In 10-6?
In 10-6, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I want to be able to, like, I want to, like, jump in your brain when I want to, but, like, I don't want it just to be overflowing my brain.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, next one is called Black Pride by Justina Ireland. I like this one, too. I mean, I like all of them, but I did like this one. So, a girl named Macy is like running from a creature in the woods, and her friends Roger, Peter, and Shelly did not make it. It's the middle of the day. Like, she just went to the lake with her friend. She can't believe like this creature is running, trying to kill everyone. She's like, someone has to warn the people that the lake isn't safe. And she's trying to hide in the creek, but the creature grabs her, and it's like just so furry, and it bites her shoulder. And then all of a sudden the pain is gone and her heart stops. And we jump over to Cheryl. So Cheryl's getting dressed, and her mom basically thinks she's like dressing too fast or whatever. It's 1973, which is the year mom was born. And she's headed to a cabin at Lake Preston with her friends. And her mom tells her, like, be careful. A bunch of white kids went missing up there. And she's going with Shep and then Tanya and Daniel, who are dating. And she, like, they're driving whatever. They stop at this, like, rickety old, like, gas station. And she's like, it smells like a cat here. And it makes her sneeze. And, like, her friend's like, oh, like, you're so sensitive. Like, your nose is so sensitive. So, we learned that Cheryl's going to Howard. And Tanya, like, doesn't want her to go. But basically, Cheryl's dad, like, ended up, like, in trouble with the law. And I don't remember if he died or not. But, like, a whole bunch of stuff happened with her dad. So she wants to go to Howard, become a lawyer, and so that she can, like, work in the system. But Tanya says, like, we don't need any lawyers. Black people don't need more lawyers. The system's broken. It doesn't work for us. So at the register, like, there's this old black lady. She tells them to be careful because they found a girl torn to pieces up there, and they think that it's a bear. And as they, like, leave and drive the rest of the way, like, her and Danielle talk about, or no, Danielle and somebody, I don't know. Danielle's talking about a black boy that also went missing recently. And he says, like, well, the bears are probably less dangerous than the people on the other side of the lake, hinting at, like, it's 1973. Like, there's basically, like, some racism or, like, the Klan or something.
Or saying they choose the bear.
Yeah, like, in all instances, we choose the bear. Always choose the bear. Always choose the bear. So when they get to the cabin, there's a car there, and then we learn that it's Daniel's brother. Like, he's already there. And Tanya's just been acting super weird, and she tells her, like, I need to talk to you. But as she says it, Alfred comes out, who is the brother, and, like, he just looks so fine. And he apparently was, like, in the army, and so, like, now he's back. So all of them go out to the lake, except for Alfred. And they stay out till dark, and they start to hear, like, animal sounds, but Daniel's like, it's fine, like, you know, whatever. But then this white girl comes running out of the middle of nowhere saying, God, like, please help me. And this is not funny, but it makes me think of Scary Movie 2 when Regina Hall was like, when she was hiding behind the wall and, like, City's coming and she's, like, running from the skeleton and she's like, help me! And she's like, why she gotta bring all that shit over here? Like, that's me. Like, why'd you have to come out here? You running from this monster, now we all gonna die. You could have ran anywhere else and died by yourself. Like, why? Die alone. Die alone. So the girl's running. She's like, please help me. Cindy, that's so funny. But anyway, so the girl's like, please help me. And then, like, something tackles her and, like, drags her off. And, like, you can just hear them, like, munching, like, bone breaking. Bleh, bleh, bleh. So Cheryl's like, oh, I'm out of here. And so she, like, runs to the house. And then, like, Shep is, like, right behind her. And Tanya is too. But Daniel and Alfred are, like, nowhere to be, like, seen. And I was like, oh, this is them. Like, I was like, this is them. I already knew. Mm-hmm. So they hear all these, like, scraping, like, sounds outside. And Shep is like, we got to go. But Tanya's being like, you guys, it's fine. Like, chill out. Like, it's fine. And they're like, just block the door. And she's like, I need you to calm down. So I'm looking at you. Like, what? What do you mean calm down? A girl just got ate in front of us. So Shep's like, I'm going upstairs, which horrible move. But whatever. So they all go upstairs. And Cheryl's like, okay, what's up with Tanya? Like, what's going on? And she's like, that wasn't no bear. Like, it was, like, slim. She's like, I know what a bear looks like. That was not a bear. So they're in the room, and Tanya's like, calm down, listen. And she sees, like, that Tanya has, like, blood on her top. And then the window explodes, and this creature jumps inside and, like, bites Shep. So Cheryl runs up out of the door. She runs outside, and, like, Tanya is, like, right behind her. And she sees Alfred, like, walking from the trees, and he's just, like, walking. She's like, we have to go. But he's missing his shirt. His pants are all torn up. And then Daniel comes out looking just like Alfred did. And Alfred, like, looks annoyed, and he says, I thought Tanya was going to talk to them. And Cheryl's like, is this some kind of joke? And Alfred says, no, it's a chance to change things. The Black Panthers are gone. And he goes, when I was in Vietnam, the locals talked about a monster called, like, the Lucaroo, I believe. And it's kind of like werewolves. And he says, like, something basically started eating his platoon members. So he started researching it, and he, like, went to other, like, countries. He was doing all kinds of research. So in front of them, because Tanya, like, grabs her and, like, makes her stand and watch, Alfred starts, like, just changing his form completely. And Tanya's, like, weirdly strong, too. So he turns into a half lion, half man. And Daniel says, this is how we'll defend ourselves against the man. Alfred says the clan is on the other side of this lake, and that basically he says he killed that girl because he found her scent there when he went to go look for that black boy that was missing. And he says when they don't kill, we get a couple of cows delivered, and like it helps with their cravings. Tanya says, join us, and then Shep comes out smiling, and his injury is all healed. And she knows that this is why because Tanya's been bothering her to come to the lake all summer, so she knows this is why she's wanted her to come. And Cheryl thinks, like, you guys are monsters. Like, what will they do if I just decide I don't want to do this? But then she thinks about her dad and how he did everything right and the system still failed him. And she wants to change the world. And she's like, I wonder if I can do both. So she just starts walking towards Alfred saying, I'm still going to Howard. I like that one. I was like, ooh, I don't know.
I'm like, but if you're my friend,
don't do that to me.
Don't pull me out here until you... I don't want to turn into a freaking monster.
I don't want to eat a whole cow. All right, the next one is The Screamers by, I don't know if it's, I can't remember. I listened to the audiobook. I don't know if it's Daka Hermon. I don't know. So sorry. So this one is Imani. Oh, I like this one too. And Imani's dad is basically asking if she needs help. She's moving her stuff up to the attic. So they just moved to a new house. She chose the attic for her room. She has 2 siblings who are younger than her. They're twins, and they're like downstairs fighting. And she goes in the room and she looks at a picture of her older brother, Corey. And I, immediately, I assumed, like, he was dead. And she tells the picture, like, we're in Tennessee now because, like, apparently they move all the time. And she says that she wished he would never have made a list of all the states he wanted to visit. And she looks out the window and she notices an axe in the backyard, like, on a tree stump. And she sees what look like eyes. And then she hears a howl. And then she finds this, like, weird picture of this old family standing in front of the house with this, like, wolf-looking dog. So she goes to find her parents, and they look like they're dancing because her dad called her down for dinner. And, like, she knows that they're not dancing, though. They're, like, swaying and crying, which is what they do all the time now because her brother is dead. And she thinks that her mom partially blames her for her brother's death. So she goes to dinner and she tells them, like, this house is weird. And she tells them about the picture she found. And her mom says, this house has a history. And immediately I was like, well, it's time to go. Yep. I don't want to live anywhere where they tell me the house has history. The house shouldn't have anything but walls. I don't know what kind of delusion this is. I don't want to live here.
And I mean, if you're just living here for a couple months before you move on to somewhere else.
Yeah, like, why here?
Can we rent an Airbnb for a few months?
Something else. So her dad says it might be haunted. And you still decided to live here? Are they living here for free? I'm confused. So her dad won't answer questions because he's like, I don't want to talk about it in front of the kids. So she starts Googling and just starts like reading everything. So she Googles and that weird picture comes up and it basically said that the husband killed his family, then himself, and that they think the house and the woods surrounding it are haunted and like they kill everybody who lives here.
Okay, so Amityville.
And I was like, purchase. Like, you still read that and was like, yes, live here. So her parents are mad because she's reading in front of the little ones. And so her mom like slaps a table saying like, people die all the time. And then like her brother had this favorite cup because her mom still sets his like plate and stuff up. And it like falls on the ground and like breaks everywhere. And so she starts cleaning it up saying like that was his favorite. And as her mom's doing it, she hears like creaking in the house and her mom starts like cutting her hands and bleeding. And she thinks back to the wreck. And so basically she had been in the wreck with Corey when he was dead and like saw him dead. So she goes and takes their dog out on a walk. And we learned that on her 16th birthday, her brother had let her drive his Camaro and a truck had ran a red light and hit Corey's side, killing him instantly. And he was 19. So she's walking and she sees this weird woman. And the woman says, I see you and your family in that house. That's too bad. She says, don't you know the stories? And her head is like really scarred and like caved in. It's like weird. She says, turn, kill, haunt. And says, they'll be coming soon. Better hurry up. So she like starts running back and her dog runs to the woods chasing something. And they come across this like little house with like a tin roof and a red door. And she hears a scream and then her dog Buster comes running around the house followed by like a white blurry feature. And this feature like shifts into like a dog. And then the rest of that family from the picture all manifest except for the daughter, because there was a daughter that lived that she found in the like news stories. So she hears her brother Corey saying, run. And then she hears more screams and she runs into their backyard. And her parents and her twin siblings are just standing there. Their eyes are gone white and they like slowly turn their head toward her. And her sister Jada's hair is like turning white. And she gets like knocked down and bit by the ghost dog. And it starts to drag her towards the tree stump. And the other figures appear. And then the axe is like floating and she's like watching her family like do this weird thing where their jaws like extend like ghosts and they start like screaming. And she's like, I refuse to let my family be taken. So she grabs the axe, hoping that destroying it ends this. And Corey tells her, burn it. So she hits the dog and like cuts it and he like bleeds and it like smells like death. So she runs inside and the fireplace is on. So she like throws the axe, but it's not really going the right direction, but it's as if something like pushes it the right way and it flows right into the fireplace. And the figures like start screaming and then like the house catches on fire. So she grabs the keys and she runs to the car and she gets like sick thinking about it because she hasn't driven since then. But Corey's like, you're good. He appears next to her and he looks like normal, like healed. And he tells her he's always here for her. Just drive. So she drives into the backyard, but her family won't get in. So she gets out and just like pushes each one of them in. And all the white figures start coming out the house and she like drives through them. And I'm like, yes, exactly. And the house is burning. And as they get further away, her mom is like coming out of it and she's like, what is happening? And then she looks and she sees the old lady in her driveway. And I was like, it's the daughter. So this is the daughter that made it. And she's just saying like, burn, burn. The end.
The end.
Why would you move into a house that's haunted? Knowingly, willingly do that. I would be so upset. Okay. The next one is called Queeniums for Greenium, and it's by Brittney Morris. And so Cynthia is basically going with her sister Diana to this like weekend retreat. And she thinks it's a cult because it's basically like an MLM or like a pyramid scheme. And her sister says like, you just need to let your hair down and relax. And she's like, my hair's in a fro. It is down. So her sister basically sells these like, it's like a health foods MLM. So she's like, you just need to drink this stuff. But what we'll learn is Cynthia has tons of allergies and like issues. She takes like a shot every like week, or she's been doing all these shots to like clear it up. And the shot is basically small doses of whatever the allergen is to like slowly get her body accustomed to it. But she's also allergic to soy and they can't do it with the soy. And so her sister gives her this protein shake called Greenium. And it has soy in it. And she's like, I can't, because like no matter what, like nothing will fix my soy allergy. So I will have to take my EpiPen. I will die. And her sister's like, well, you could take, like, you should try it. Like, I even lost 20 pounds. And like Cynthia's always been like kind of overweight and all of that too. So like that was a jab. And so she gets there and it's like a huge like sorority house. And so she's going in and people keep offering to like take her bag. And she's like, no, I don't want you to take my damn bag. Like, no, I don't want you to. And then this girl comes around and is like, okay, put your phones in the thing. And I'm also not doing that. I'm never giving you my phone.
If I think that it's a cult, there's no way I'm going, period.
I'm not going.
Sister or not, like, yeah. I love you.
Not going. Definitely not giving you my phone. Ever. It never ends well. So the house is like huge and like they're walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking to get to her room. So she gets put in the pink room and it has literally a rose quartz door. Like these people are rich. And she goes in and her sister's like, I'm in the onyx room, which I was like, yes, that's what I want. That room matches my soul. Give me the onyx room. And so she goes in and she's going to give herself her allergy shot because she missed her doctor's appointment. And she literally hears her door locked. And she goes and she's locked into her room. So she goes and like, she's like, okay, I don't have my phone. Like, let me get in the vent. Like, I got to get out of here. And she leaves the shop behind. So she hears a voice. She's like passing by rooms and it's the girl that took their phones. Her name's Bianca. And she's like, yes, her phone's in the harmonizer. And a woman says like, okay, we're good. Like, we just need to get her to drink the greenium. And she's like, I have to find my sister and let them know like what's up with this place. So she goes back to her room and she starts to go back and like she's passing all these rooms. Like there's a diamond room, there's a ruby room, like there's all these rooms. So as she's going, she's trying to be quick and her like, she says it. You have the little piece. It's such a weird name. The little piece on your shoelace, the plastic there, right? Yes. It like hits the thing and they hear it. And so Bianca looks up and sees her and goes, oh, that's where you are. Creepy as hell. Very Stepford Wives around here. So she's like, okay. And Bianca's like, well, you can't hide forever. And she's like, all we want is one sip. Like, no, I don't want your drink. You're not going to make, what did she say? You're not going to make fetch happen. So she's like in this vent. She's like, okay, I got to get out of here. So she goes past her room and she sees them in there with her medication. And they're like, all she needs is elderberry. This is so funny. All you need is zinc and elderberry. Like, you don't need medicine. And so like people are getting into the vents to come and get her. And she's like, I don't know which way to go. And she's trying to figure it out. And the vent like collapses under her. So she thinks she's in a secret passage, but she's like, no, this is a rich house. I'm in the staff hallway. So she grabs like a pipe to like defend herself. And she hears someone approach. And she's like, Bianca says, you won't have to take your allergy shots and you can lose weight. So she hides in this room, but then someone comes in and is like, I found you. But then they disappear and then appear right next to her ear. And like, she's grabbed and like knocked out. So she wakes up and she has this weird like grass taste in her mouth. And she's not tied down. So she gets up and runs to the door and it's unlocked. But she's like, wait, where's my sister? But her face is swelling. So they didn't give her this freaking protein drink. And so she grabs the nearest girl and she's like, I need my EpiPen. Where's my pen? But no one responds. And her sister comes out and just says, let the greenium work. And she's holding the EpiPen. And so Diana says, her sister says, that's what's killing you, all the stuff that you're taking. And Diana says, the meds are killing you. And she gives her a packet of the greenium go-go shot and says, you should take this every day to replace your meds. And Diana says, I want you to enjoy life. She says, now just give it time to work and then I'll give you your EpiPen. And Cynthia's like, okay, deal, fine. I'll do it or whatever. But then she lunges for her EpiPen and her sister like gets on top of her. And so she's able to break free with the pen and she runs outside and gives herself the shot. Diana chases her and she is able to get her immunotherapy shot too. And she stabs her sister in the neck with the shot. And Diana's eyes like instantly roll back and she collapses and she's like, oh my God, I killed her. Like, we don't give the shot directly in the vein in the neck. And she's like, she's also like not allergic. Like, oh my God. So Diana like starts to wake up and she feels a faint pulse. And so she sits up and she's like, Diana, no, but she yanks the needle out. I'm like, how big is this damn needle? Cause she's like, she starts bleeding out. And I'm like, that wouldn't normally happen. My medical brain was tingling. But whatever. Diana like yanks the needle out and like she's bleeding everywhere. So Cynthia's like holding pressure and she's like, call 911, do this, do that. And no one moves. So she looks at Bianca because she's like, you're the leader. Like she's like, come on. And Bianca's hand twitches like she wants to help, but then she doesn't. So she drags her sister to the car and like she gets there and like Bianca like runs to the car and she like locks her. And she's like, where are you taking her? And she's like, oh, to like some health nut place. And she's like, really? She said, no, to the hospital. The end.
I really like that one.
That was hilarious. The next one is called Inheritance by Kamara Aaron. So we have Delaney and Tamara, and they are sitting in in Tyler's room. So they are in the 8th grade. They start 9th grade on Monday, and they are like, basically it's like a house party. They're playing Spin the Bottle, but like whoever gets it gets like 7 minutes in heaven, all that good stuff. So Tamara is like, wants her to go talk to Miles. He went to the I think it's the Dominican, DR, like over the summer, and she went to the DR over the summer, so like they could relate. But she's like, I don't even want to be here. Like, I don't want to talk to Miles. Miles is a white boy. She's black, obviously. But Miles spins the bottle, and it lands like between her and Tamara. So Tamara nudges it, so it lands on her. So her and Miles go up to the attic, and he tries to kiss her, but she's like, no, thank you. So then he kind of is a jerk, and then he says, I'm sorry, like I had a bad summer, and she says, me too. And she doesn't like want to talk to him, but then Tamara, like she remembers Tamara saying like, okay, we have to like be nice, like, or we're gonna have a bad reputation. So she sits with him, and you know, they both had their summer in the DR, and she was there because her aunt Margot lives there, and her aunt's neighbor like has a son, and he was like, oh, your aunt's a vampire, like a witch or something, and like people say that about her aunt all the time. And she tells Miles about like a beach she used to go there, and she tells him like she had asked her aunt like, why do people think she's a witch? But her aunt was like, oh, don't listen to the neighbor. Like, she doesn't like the neighbor because he beats on his son and he's like a terrible person. So he spreads rumors about him. And Miles tells her like they had a bad summer because his dad like works on like houses and stuff like that. And like whatever he was working on caught fire and like he lost a bunch of money. So it was real bad. And so she tells Miles about like, again, about the beach they normally go to, but the beach ended up being, she tells him like that one time they went, or no, she doesn't tell him this. She's thinking about how one time her and her aunt went to the beach and it was blocked off by a hotel development. So they snuck onto it and she gets bit by a dog. And there were 3 dogs and they tried to attack her, but her aunt fought them off. And at the time, like, she's thinking about this, Miles, like, touching her scar, which she's like, quit freaking touching me. And he's like, oh, what happened? So what we learned happened is that the dogs attacked, and her aunt is some kind of weird monster thingy. It made me think of Lovecraft Country. Did you ever watch that? So in Lovecraft Country, there is someone who, like, sheds their skin like this.
Really?
So her aunt basically, like, sheds her skin and, like, turns into this monster and, like, scares off these dogs. And that's how, like, they were able to defend themselves. But she doesn't tell him that. And so after this all happened, her aunt took her back to the house, cleaned her up, and, like, her aunt seemed kind of disappointed that Delaney was scared of her. And so she asked her aunt, like, you know, are you going to drink my blood now? And her aunt laughs and is like, I protect you. And she asked her aunt, like, well, am I the same as you? And she doesn't really answer. And then she spent the rest of the summer, like, just waiting to transform into this thing like her aunt, but she never does. And we learned that after this whole beach incident, her aunt confronted the man who owned the hotel, and she, like, went to, like, market and, like touched him and, like, said all this stuff to him. And Miles says, your aunt sounds crazy. And Delaney gets offended, and she's like, okay, I'm about to go. But, like, the door's locked. So Miles grabs her and says, your aunt scared him. And she realizes that her or his dad was the owner of the hotel that blocked off the property. And Miles says his dad didn't know about the dogs. And Miles said, like, he never really told him because he didn't want to admit what he did. So I'm assuming Miles released these dogs. And so Miles says that her aunt cursed the hotel and it burnt down. And he, like, grabs her, like, down on the floor, and she's like, please don't. Like, I guess she thought he was probably gonna, like, essay her. Like, I don't know. And she's, like, laying there thinking, like, I am not gonna let this this white boy do this to me. So she bites him, and he looks super scared and realizes, she looks down and she realizes he's holding her skin and she is out of her body. He says, don't hurt me. Like, please just break the curse. And she says, Miles, what curse? And her voice sounds different. And he threatens to rip her skin because he's like, don't you need this back? He's like, I'll do it if you don't help me. And so she doesn't want to hurt him because she knows, like, that's for pleasure. And her aunt wouldn't do this, like, for pleasure. She only does it when she has to. And so she says, I'll do it if you don't acknowledge me at school and don't ever speak to me again. And if your dad reopens the beach. So she touches him and, like, thinks that's the way to break the curse. And then all of a sudden the attic door opens from underneath him, and he, like, drops to the floor, and she steps back into her skin. But yes, in Lovecraft Country, there's kind of something like that. Like, it's weird. You should see it. Lovecraft Country was really good.
I've heard that it's good.
Yeah, it was really good. Okay, this one was interesting. The next one is The Black Girl Nature Group by Maika and Maritza. I don't know how to say their last name. I'm assuming they're a couple or siblings or something like that. They have the same last name. So this is Lucky. She's heading to an overnight camping trip, and her mom is worried. Basically, her Aunt Solange went missing in the same place she's going tonight, but she's going to this Black Girl Nature Group, and it's supposed to be at, like, a blood moon and a meteor shower tonight. So her friend Patricia, who is white, and the mayor's daughter, Patricia, and, like, Patricia invited her to go. And so, like, as they're passing, like, in the trees, she feels like she sees these, like, statues standing in the trees, which is super weird, but whatever. And her dad says, like, well, you just need to understand, like, black folks don't really go in the woods, like, especially back in the day, like, whatever. And so she gets a text from Patricia, and, like, Patricia's like, oh, like, not gonna make it, gotta go to this christening, like, so sorry. And so she's like, dang. So she thinks about her old friend Jazz, who she hasn't been friends with for, like, a year. And her mom says, as they pull up, she's like, this black girl group isn't looking very black. Because there are, like, no black people, except for Jazz, who appears. And her parents don't really, like, know about all the fallout, so her parents speak to her. And Jazz says, like, Patricia isn't going to, and she cuts her off really fast and says, like, oh, Patricia is going to be, like, late or something like that. But she doesn't want her parents to know that Patricia is not coming. Her mom, like, before she goes, her mom prays over her and Jazz. And her mom thinks the reason her, like, aunt went missing is because that one time that she went out there was a time that her grandma didn't pray over her. And so her mom's like, it's good enough for my mom, I'm doing it for you. So she prays that they'll be safe, basically. And so once, like, her parents are gone, Jazz just walks off. And we learned it's been over a year since they talked. And that's because, like, she had feelings for Jazz, and Jazz didn't, like, reciprocate those feelings. She didn't feel for her, like, in the same way, like, more than a friend. So she's, like, walking this trail to, like, get to the check-in, and she keeps, like, walking past, like, people. They're all white women, and, like, they're, like, shoulder checking her, and some of them say, excuse me, and she sees Jazz up ahead, and Jazz is like, are you following me? And she's like, no, I'm going the same direction as you. And so they realized very quickly that Patricia played them. Like, she bailed out so that they would, like, be forced together and have to make up. So Jazz walks away, though, because she was going to try and, like, talk to her and patch it up, but Jazz just walks away. So she starts feeling a little lonely and scared, and she just sees, like, all of these white people with these, like, creepy wide-tooth grins who keep bumping into her, and she has absolutely no phone service. Again, these are all reasons I would turn around. I would walk back until I have phone service and say, pick me up. So she gets to the check-in, and it's another white woman, no sign of Jazz. And the woman says, oh, I know you. Like, hi, Lucky. And Lucky's like, am I in the right place? And the woman, her name is Rachel. She says, because she's like, how do you even know me? And she's like, oh, you look like your Bitmoji. But, like, Lucky has been, like, working with this group for, like, a while. And, like, she's met the leaders of this group. And it's not white women. Like, she's met them. So on the table at check-in, there's, like, pictures of, like, these black women. And Rachel says, like, oh, these are the women who have been lost to the forest. And she looks down and she sees Jazz's friendship bracelet that she was wearing that was from her from when they'd been friends. And she hears a scream and then she just runs and everyone scatters. And Rachel tells people to grab her, but she like outruns them. So she hears someone tell Rachel to stop saying the acolytes' names before they introduce themselves. And Rachel's like, I can't help it. Like, I just love that, like, look that they get on their face when they're like, wow, she knows my name. And the lady says, well, you won't like it when our powers are dormant again. And, like, we'll have to tell the mayor. And Lucky wonders if Patricia knows what's going on here. But she realizes she must because basically this group started, like, as, like, I guess, like a Facebook group or something like that. But the group supposedly got compromised. So then Patricia added her to the text thread because this is the group, Black Girls in the Nature or whatever. But, like, other people can join it. It's just, like, it's supposed to be, like, catered to Black females. But so when there was like a new text thread, Patricia's the one who added her to it. So she's like, oh yeah, she knows. So she starts looking for Jazz and she sees her in the center of this like enclosure and there's like a force field around her. So like she's trying to break it out and there's no like nothing's giving and she just tells Jazz she's sorry and like she can barely even hear like Jazz like through this, like it muffles everything. So Jazz is saying like statue, and she looks behind her and she sees these statues and there's two pits in the ground in front of them. Like, and so they're like, oh, they're going to bury them. So she pulls out like some kind of stone that releases the force field. And Jazz says like the celestial event is for them to harness their power here. And she says, I'm going to whoop Patricia's ass if I ever see her again. And like they cut off all of her bindings and they hear footsteps. So they run. And Lucky gets tired and she tells Jazz that she loves her as she lets herself be caught. So now Lucky is in the cage. And this time though, she has like the token that she removed from like the cage when Jazz was in it. And so Rachel comes in and she like grabs Lucky to take her to the altar and the meteor shower starts and Jazz comes screaming like this Haitian battle cry and she has all of these women behind her, including Jazz's mom, who apparently like, I don't know if it was cancer, but she died and she was really sick. And like, that's one thing Lucky feels bad about. It happened during this year when they weren't talking and her mom died. All of a sudden, like one of the statues erupts and her aunt Solange comes out of it. And then all of the statues start doing that, freeing all of these girls. And her and Jazz like run off into the woods and they're woken by the women who saved them. And they realize these are all of their ancestors, all of the women who went missing in the forest. And so as the sun rises, the women fade and her parents pick them up. And her mom asks like, where is everyone? And like, she's like, y'all look rough. Like, you want to talk about it? And they're like, no, not yet. And she puts Jazz's bracelet back on. The end. That one was interesting. It was. Yeah. The next one is Cemetery Dance Party, which immediately I said that's a bad idea. But it's by Saraciea Fennell. So sorry if I'm butchering names. So Alessandra is having a silent dance party at a cemetery for the senior class. Why this was allowed, I don't know. Why anybody agreed to, I'm not going.
Well, and that's disrespectful.
Yeah, too. Like I hate like when I go to like the cemetery and my kids like I don't like to walk over their graves. Like there was nowhere else.
Right.
A cemetery? Who allowed this? Why did anybody show up? I have so many questions.
Like I would be so upset if I found out that they were practically having prom on my loved one's date.
Yeah, like what is that on their like grave? So she's out there and she's arguing with these girls that are talking about her friend Simone. And she's talking to a guy named Richie who she likes. And then all of a sudden, Simone and the girls who don't like her, which the main one, her name is Jessica, they are fighting. And they crash into this mausoleum. So it like breaks open. And then all of a sudden, there is this like rotted like egg smell. Which always is a bad sign. Sulfur is the sign of demons.
Yep.
So someone says, Simone says, I hope Jessica gets eaten alive. And all this screaming starts and people are running everywhere. And so Richie runs up to her and he has blood on his shirt. And someone says, we have to go. And one of Jessica's friends is being attacked by a zombie crawling out of the ground. And then bodies just start popping up everywhere. It is Night of the Living Dead around here. A girl is literally ripped in half. So they start running and like they end up in a group of people they don't like because it's Richie, Simone, and Alessandra, and then Jessica and her like friends. I always feel like Jessica's weird, but that's her name, so whatever. So someone says like what's going on, and the girl says like basically when Simone and Jessica got in that fight, like they released something because they broke into that mausoleum. And there's a girl with them, said Jules, and she said, I told you guys not to have the party in this part of the cemetery because this part of the cemetery is cursed. No, the whole thing is cursed. Why are you out there? Bad idea. So basically, a witch cursed a white slave owner to live forever. And when he did finally die, he woke hungry for flesh and blood and made an undead army. And so some people start laughing and they're like, those aren't vampires. And Alessandra says, no, it's zombies. And she's like, okay, we can use lavender to like ward them off. And they hear a snap and then this rotted smell is back. And they realize that there's a girl missing because she went to go pee. And like, she's like, rule number 1, never split up. Like, yeah, stupid. You ain't got to pee that bad. I'll just pee in front of you. Like, I don't know. So Alessandra's like, I'll go look for her because like Richie got injured like in the first like little run or whatever. And so she goes with, I think, Jules. And then the girl's severed head comes rolling toward them. So they start running. And another boy is running and the ground literally opens up underneath him and he gets eaten. They run into this like mausoleum to hide. And like at this point, Alessandra's shoulder is dislocated. 2 people are missing. And Jessica was attacked pretty badly. So like she can't even move. So they put her shoulder back in and they decide to leave Jessica there so they can find a way out. And so all of a sudden, Jessica starts like convulsing and she doesn't have a pulse. But then she's alive again. But this time her eyes are glassy and she's like making grunting sounds. So they start throwing stuff at her, fighting her, and they run off and they're finally able to make it to the end. Dumb, 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 and dumb. All right. This one was weird. The next one is The Skittering Thing by Monica Brashears. So Sunny and Charlotte are at Windsor shopping and it's Sunny's birthday like tomorrow and she wants to get a birthday sash and she really wants a tiara, but her mom is like a hater and like doesn't believe in celebrating like things talking about you should never like feel that special even for just a birthday or whatever. But she's looking at this stuff and Charlotte wants to look at the prom dresses because even though they have 2 years to prom, like she's obsessed with it. But Sunny knows like she probably will never go because she had a panic attack in geometry and so everyone thinks she's weird now. So they're like talking about like church because apparently the like pastor from Charlotte's church is missing. And Sunny's like, yeah, because he cheats on his wife. He's probably like gone doing that. And the mention of like God and church and everything really stresses Sunny out, which we'll learn later is because her grandma was kind of like extreme with like all of the church lore and like the coming of Christ and all that. So a girl comes up to them. Her name is Ray. And she asked them if they go to this certain church. And, like she mentions like a new pastor or whatever like that. And Sunny says, yeah, he probably cheats on his wife too. And she says, my dad is the pastor and he doesn't cheat on my mom. So they leave and they're waiting for the bus when Ray runs up to them and she gives her like the birthday tiara saying, you forgot this. And she says that they should come over for a sleepover tomorrow, which I was like, first of all, I don't even know you. And I know this is like some little small town. I don't know you. And I don't know why your parents, I know they lied, but like, why do you want to stay at this stranger's house? The girl, Ray is basically like, oh, we can like smoke weed. I don't know you.
Right.
You don't smoke weed with people you don't know. You don't smoke weed, but you don't smoke weed with people you don't know. And I'm not staying at your house. Why not spend the night? No. So that was red flag number 1. So that like piques their interest. They're like, okay, whatever. Because all she normally does on her birthday is Sunny goes over Charlotte's house and they just like watch TV and that's it. Like there's nothing special about her birthday. So they agree. And she's like thinking again about her grandma, how her grandma always talked about like the mark of the beast and like the end of times. And she doesn't really believe in that, but she still is like afraid of it, which means that you do believe in it because you can't be afraid of stuff you don't believe in. But anywho, so they meet up with Ray and like she's like, oh, okay, like, you know, we have to go to my house. And they're like, where is it? Her house is an hour away. Number 2. Red flag number 2. So as they're like driving there, like Ray drives and they ask her like, oh, do your parents know like she smokes? And she's kind of like shrugged her shoulder or whatever. And they pull up to this house and it's not at all what they expect it to be. And they see a lady on like the 3rd floor smoking a cigarette. She looks like really thin. And Ray says like her mom basically makes like YouTube videos doing tarot readings, which is super weird since her dad is a pastor.
Right.
And her dad is downstairs when they go in. He's like in the recliner with his Bible, highlighting his notes. And Ray kind of like says something like rude to her dad, which Sunny thinks is weird. And they go to her room, which is not unpacked at all. And she just keeps saying like, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to like move to Knoxville soon. And so like Sunny and Charlotte are like starting to get weirded out, which I was like, yeah, take me home. Like I'm leaving now. But so they like kind of get close or whatever. And Ray starts talking about these caves that are like nearby. And basically they found like a jaguar and like an underground lake in them. And Sunny remembers how her grandma said, like, at the end of times, they would find a beast from water that would appear like a leopard. And Ray thinks that this is where the missing missing pastor might be, that her dad has now replaced. And Sunny thinks that Ray's a liar and, like, doesn't even think that she even was going to let them smoke because she hasn't mentioned anything about it. And she tries to get on her phone, and of course she doesn't have cell phone service. Red flag number, I don't know what. It's time to go. So Charlotte says, like, I don't know, I've been in this house before. And Ray's dad, like, drinks their water at dinner. He's like, it's the best water. It's from a well. And they have a well in their basement. And Ray says, like, starts talking about it. And her dad gives her this, like, weird look and says, no storytelling tonight. Sunny asks, like, oh, is the water from, like, the underground lake or whatever? And that makes the dad talk about the lake more. And basically, Sunny asked them about moving to Knoxville, and the pastor says, like, well, it's complicated. Like, my wife won't leave the house because, or no, the dad says they're supposed to move to Knoxville, but basically the old pastor's wife won't leave the house because she's, like, waiting for the pastor to come back home so they don't have anywhere to go, basically. And Charlotte is just telling Sunny, like, I'm telling you, I've been in this house before for, like, a fundraiser or something, and she's like, what if the pastor is still here? And she thinks about how her grandmother always said, like, the, like, first beast, I guess, from, like, the end of times, like, comes to those people who are, like, believers, I guess. And so, really weird thing, the mom is like, we should play Skitter. First of all, I don't want to play anything that sounds like Skitter. And, like, it's really weird for her mom to suggest it. And it's even weirder when you find out what it is, which is basically hide and seek in the dark in their house, and they're all hiding from the mom. No, they just brought back a complete thought because we did used to play hide and seek in my friend's house in the dark, and like her parents and stuff would play. I guess it didn't seem weird then, but like now reading this, I'm like, was that weird? I didn't think it was. It also wasn't called Skitter.
Call it freaking Skitter.
Skitter,
like, what the
that's
heck?
Weird. And I was like in middle school. I don't know. It was fun. Like it was like the whole family play. Like,
yeah.
Whatever. I don't know. But now that I say that, I'm like, maybe that was strange. I don't know.
Well, maybe with like strangers. I mean, you've literally met this girl once.
Skitter, like you want to chase around kids you don't know. That's weird. So basically, they have to like just like hide out until the skittering thing tires, and you can't leave the house. And they have monitoring devices on every exit of the house, so they know if you go outside, and you have to play it in the pitch black. And not only do they turn off the light, they take the bulbs out of the light sockets. I'm not playing this with you.
Absolutely not.
But hey, they're kind of stuck here now, so they do it. And Ray's like, we should all split up or whatever. It'll be easier to get away. Like, if she comes in a room, we can sneak out. So they all do that. It's dark now. So Sunny starts heading towards the stairs behind Charlotte, but then all of a sudden she loses Charlotte. And then she hears, like, the dog move because Ray has a dog. And she feels something, like, fleshy, and she's like, oh, God, it's a demon. But then, like, somebody covers her mouth, and she can, like, smell the Bath & Body Works, and she's like, oh, it's Charlotte. So they're, like, moving around or whatever, and they head towards the basement. And the dog is, like, following them, like, right next. They can hear him, like, padding along. And when they get to, like, the basement, the dog doesn't go down with them. But Ray is down there. I'm not going in your basement in the dark. Mm-hmm. I can't even see. I'm not participating.
I'm not going in the basement, period.
Yeah, like, I don't
No, thank you.
ever want to hang out in your basement. I've never even seen your basement, and now I have to go in the pitch black. And when they get down there, the well is down there, but like it's wet. Like the well has like overflown. I don't freaking know. So Sunny's like, can we get out like down here? And Ray says like, no, like the monitoring app, but they're like, forget it. Like, so they like are like, we're going to go out of this like window. And she's like, well, the dog will bark anyways because my dad ties him up outside. And they're like, are you sure? Because your dog was just walking around with us in the house. And she's like, no, he's outside. And so Sunny thinks like, okay, the first beast has arrived. So they start freaking out, and she's like, how do we get out of here? And Ray doesn't answer them, and they hear something like moving upstairs. So Sunny and Charlotte are like, we're going out this window, and they climb out. And they reach back for Ray, but she doesn't come after them. And they say like, something is in your house. And she says, well, you should tell my parents. But then she like gives this weird smile and says, no one would believe you. So they get outside, and they hear the dog barking. So the dog is outside. And Charlotte says, we have to get out of here right now. And she's like, on our way down into the basement, like the dog licked me. So what the hell was that? And so then they hear her dad saying hunting hour. And they hear the mom scream. And they see a light flicker on the third floor. And like they see the dad standing on a stool twisting the bulb. And then it goes black again. And Sunny's like, okay, like I think the game's over. And Charlotte says, no, I think that they're just toying with us. And then a window opens on the second floor and nothing happens. And then on the third floor and nothing happens. And then on the first floor, and Charlotte starts to like go, ha ha, you guys got us. But Sunny covers her mouth, and they see Ray running like with a limp. And Ray like runs under the trampoline and hides. And she's like holding her ankle because she was limping. And she's crying, and she doesn't see them hiding. So Ray's dad comes out calling for her and says, where are you? And she says that it got mom. And he says, what got mom? And she says, there's something living in the well. I'm sorry. I let it out. It said it was hungry. And Ray goes to her dad, and her dad says, I'm right here. But it like has this weird like click sound under his voice. And then they hear Ray scream. So they hide out in the woods for the rest of the night. And they hear this like sniffing at one point. And then they hear the pastor say like, these old bones are no good, no good. But they make it to dawn. That one was kind of confusing and weird.
Yeah, that one wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, there were parts I was like, I didn't really get, but it was creepy.
It was creepy.
Religious stuff is always creepy.
Like, in freaking...
I would not.
Don't go to a freaking stranger's house.
I know. You don't know this person at all. No one even knew you were there, probably. They probably said they were at each other's houses.
Right.
Oh my God, no. All right, the next one is called The Black Strings by Vincent Tirado. And so basically, Mel says that black strings are the physical embodiment of death that hangs over people's heads before they die. And she has always been able to see them. And so Mel is going to a hotel, and everyone in this hotel has black strings. And like the black strings appear like when you're going to die, basically. So she's like, oh, we all have black strings at this hotel. Like, what's going on? So she's going to this hotel with Nora, who is her sister's friend, and her sister, Essie. And they're all there for a band competition. Her sister, Essie, has a band called The Fates 3. And she basically just participates in it because, like, her sister asked her to. So when they get there, she speaks with a girl who doesn't have a string. And the girl's name is Carla, and she's Mr. Hadesley. Because it's like Hades Lee. Because she says it in the story. And she's his assistant. And he's, like, over this whole competition. And Carla says, I wouldn't mind if the guy dropped dead, but she doesn't know if she's talking about her boss or about this guy named Riley, who is like a big competition here. So Carla goes up to like welcome everyone, tell them what to do. And it's weird because everyone in the room has a black string. And Mel's like, I've never seen that many. She said the first time she saw it, she was in math class. Her teacher looked super pale. He had one, and then he never came back again. He died. So then, like, since then, she sees, like, a couple here and there, but never a bunch all together like this. So she starts thinking back to the car crash. So apparently her parents died in a car crash, and she had gone with them that day because they had black strings. And she thought that she could prevent it, like going to the doctor with them, but she couldn't. So she sees the Riley guy. He comes up to them, and his string is gone now, which he did have one before. And she's like, that's weird because the string only disappears if they die. And so her sister says, like, let's go to the room, but Riley follows them. He says, if you want help practicing, I'm in room 1204. And they're like, you know what? You go ahead in the elevator, like, we'll catch up, whatever. And Essie tells her, like, she need to be more careful. Like, do you know what he meant by practicing? Did, like, mom ever even have the talk with you? And Essie doesn't know that her sister is into girls. And actually, she even liked Nora at a time, but she never, like, did anything because Nora is Essie's friend. And she tells her sister, I'm autistic, not naive. And so all of a sudden they hear this like weird groaning with the elevator, and then the doors blow open and Essie covers her like with her own body and like throws them across the room. And Essie is screaming and she's like, okay, that's good. That means she's alive. And so she realizes that they're in like a puddle of blood and it's not hers because she's fine. And she looks and sees that Essie's string is still intact, but everyone in that elevator died. Basically like the like wires dropped them all the way to the ground.
Some Final Destination.
I was gonna say this one gives real Final Destination. Yeah. So from this happening, 2 bands drop out and Riley is dead. And so some people requested like a room on the first floor after that, which like valid. Yep. Yeah. And so we learned that Riley's room again had been on the 12th floor, so that's where he is going. And so they go to their room like for the rest of the day, and like she almost wants to ask her sister like maybe we should drop out, but her sister like this is her one big chance and she doesn't want to be responsible for like her sister's dreams just from her like bad feeling. So her sister asks like, do you want to stay? And she says yes. And so they spend the rest of the day in their room and they don't leave until they are gonna like order food, and Mel says, okay, I'll go down and meet them in the lobby. And so as on her way down, she passes a room where she hears Carla, the assistant, talking to this guy named Zeke, going over like footage. And she's like, is that the only footage from what happened? And he sees Mel and says, you really dodged death today because she was in the video. And Carly says, like, I'm just watching this to make sure that the accident was really an accident. And she remembers what is it Carly or Carla? Carla, not Carly. So she remembers that Carla said earlier about wanting someone to be dead. And she's like, are you just trying to get rid of evidence that could lead back to you? And then Mel notices that there's a live camera and there's a girl with pink hair like choking in the stairwell. And she realizes this is the girl she saw earlier who likes to eat ice. And so they're like, hurry, like, where is she at? So they're like running to her. And this girl doesn't have her black string anymore either. When they get to her, she's in the stairwell and she's like choking and she like lurches forward towards the rail and then she falls over and dies. So Mel doesn't go to the stairwell again. She didn't see the body. She's like, I knew she was dead. And so now there's only 7 bands left by the next day. And they get a message that says like they're just going to do 1 day of performances all like back to back so that they're not delaying anything further and get it over with. And so the girl who died, her name had been Quinn. And basically she was in the stairwell because her ice machine on her floor was down and she like eats ice. So now like it comforts her to see the strings where before it like was always a bad omen. So they go to this concert hall to perform, and she decides to reach up and touch her thread. And I was like, leave it alone. But she touches it and she's like, I've never tried it before. And she's able to like pull it down, like not break it, but just like hide it almost. So she pulls it down and she thinks that maybe someone else is removing people's threads, which means that someone else can see them. So Essie is missing her thread now, and she sees it, and she's up on stage with this guy in a blue beanie who she had just told him to like tie his shoe because she's like, God, I don't need any accidents. But his beanie catches on fire and the amp explodes and like everything's on fire. And so she says something in Essie died that day. So from that, 5 more bands end up dropping out. And from then, like, Essie does not even play in her band anymore. She goes to waitressing and they're no longer a band. So some weeks go by and she calls Nora and she said it took her weeks to like reach out to her. And she goes and meets her at this diner and she just goes, why did you do it? And Nora says, you figured it out. She says, Riley was sitting right in front of us, so you could have pulled his thread then. And then when the elevator happened, you were missing. So you were the only one not there. She says, I don't know when you could have got Quinn's string. And she's like, I don't think that you snapped Essie's string. I think you hit it so it would be safe. And Nora says, what's the point of choosing who lives or dies if you never choose? She says that she knew that Mel could see strings as soon as she met her because Mel doesn't make eye contact with people because she's autistic. But she said it wasn't just that. It was like you were constantly looking over people's heads or something. Nora says that Essie was struggling. She would go donate her plasma every week just to have gas money to pick Mel up from school. And she wanted to help make her dreams come true. And so Mel says, so you're okay, like killing people? And she says, like, I didn't want it to be bad like that, but it was kind of like an all or nothing thing. And so she asked Nora, like, do you feel bad? And Nora says, do you? So that was strange, but it was giving very, very much Final Destination.
Yeah.
The next one is Local Color by Eden Royce. So, how did they say this again? Varon? I can't remember. I just listened to it too. But anyways, I think it's Varon or Varon. So she's in her room reading this really old journal that she bought, and her grandfather was mad because she spent a bunch of money on it. But we learned that she's 16 and she's really into like missing people, like history, all kinds of things like that, because her parents disappeared and she wants to figure out what happened. She doesn't believe like ghost stories and like God and all that stuff because she thinks it's just made up to explain the unexplainable. So she's reading this part in this journal about this cat eye shapeshifter used to guard fortunes. And it says it's dangerous with unknown weaknesses, and she doesn't think it's real though. But she does find this map with a bunch of treasure marked on it. And it's funny because it's a map of Charleston where she lives, and like the area that it's on is now a playground. So she's like, okay, well, I could use that money to go to Lake Chad to figure out where my parents were last seen. So she goes to sneak out tonight and dig it up. So she gets there, and it's like a park that no one ever goes to. And she feels like someone's watching her. And so the map says, stay on the path. But like all of the marks are like not on the path. So she's like, how do I stay on the path? So she feels nervous and she startles because she sees someone appear on this doll-sized bench that like wasn't previously sitting there. And so she thinks like, you know, what if I'm wrong about all this stuff? And like maybe my grandpa's valid for getting mad. But she's like, nope, because if I'm doing something noble, I'm looking for my parents. So she starts digging and she sees this puppy appear. And so she picks it up, and then this lump starts like appearing on its back. It gets huge. And then the puppy's hair like disappears. And so she drops it and it like turns into a puddle and like soaks into the ground. So she runs back to the path. And then it's like, why did you come off of the path? Like she keeps hearing it. So she starts running towards the entrance, and there's like a force field trapping her there. And she sees a silhouette around the park, and she hears, you shouldn't have left the path. And something asks her, what do you want, girl? You followed the map and now you are here. And she's like, I'm just here because it's a park. And they say, you are greedy and you were going to take what you found. She says, what are you? And it says, don't you mean who are you? And it turns into her gramps. And her grandpa says, didn't I tell you about wandering around here at night? Why can't you do what I ask? But then he melts. So she runs into a guy called Lucky Rodriguez. It's a boy from school. He's super popular, but he actually like noticed her before. And he says like he was at a party. He's just on his way home. And he asks if she's okay. She says she is. And he goes to leave, but she says, wait. And he offers to walk her home, but she says no. And she knows she's stupid for saying that. And he says, oh, you don't want to be seen with me? And she says like, I do, but my gramps. So they walk to the entrance and he asks if he can kiss her. And she's like super excited, like, go ahead. So he kisses her and it's perfect. And she thinks he tastes like smoky, almost bitter. And he like smiles and walks off. But she decides, I can't go home. Like, I'm already here. I have to find what the map had marked. So she goes back and she starts digging, and there's a shadow over her. And she looks and she sees Lucky sitting on a bench with this like weird smile and says she should have stayed on the path. And he's like moving like there's something under his skin. And his chain that he wears isn't gold anymore. It looks leather, and his eyes are really black. She says, you're not Lucky. And he says, no. And he says, Lucky was never here. Your mind is so easy to manipulate, and tells her that the map leads to where each of us was formed. And she looks at it and realizes that these aren't X to mark treasure. They're like the eye symbol to mark the creatures. And she's like, no wonder no one comes to this park. So the silhouettes like peel away, and there's a bunch of them now, and they're circling her. So she starts fighting them back with the shovel, and they turn into her grandpa, and then her parents. And so not Lucky says, don't you want to know what happened to them, where they are? And like the eye, like the creature has like this weird eye, and it looks like a pathway or a place she wants to go, and she's getting sucked in. But then she snaps out of it and she runs home. She's like, I'll get my bag tomorrow. Like, forget it. So she sees a light on, knowing she's caught, but she doesn't care. So she runs and like collapses through the door. She tells her grandpa everything. And he says, oh, by the way, like he gets her in bed and gives her water. He says, someone dropped this off right before you got here. And it's her bag. And she's like, how? Like, no. But he starts like shaking his head all weird, and his eyes turn weird. And she realizes he's one of the monsters too. Her grandpa says, don't be surprised. We are created to protect treasure, and you are your parents' greatest treasure. And she says, you're not my gramps. And he says, no, he died before you were born. Your parents wanted me to look like him for comfort. He says, tonight shows you're ready to search for your parents. And he asks her, are you ready? We can go together. And she says, absolutely. Absolutely not. I'm creeped out. I don't want any part.
That one was a little weird, but at the same time, I kind of was like,
it was.
I would have liked more. Like,
I would have liked more. It was giving me. What's that episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog that everyone's always talking about with the what do they call it? Those like stone things that they used to like. I can't remember what it's called, but everyone I watch Courage kind of, but Courage the Cowardly Dog is like the funniest thing, and that's this monster gave me, like Courage the Cowardly Dog. All right, so we're going to our last one, and it's called Fox Hunt by Charlotte Nicole Davis. And Flex is at a football game at her school. She's a senior, and she doesn't understand like why the crowd, like everyone's so crazy about it, like the students and like the alumni, all of it. She's only been going to this school for 12 weeks, so all of her classmates have been like together their whole lives, and she's an outsider. She's considered like a troubled transfer dyke from out of state, is what she says. And she did get like at a fight at her previous school. And she's been assigned to Kirsten, who is like put to make her like feel welcome. And she's going to this game because her therapist thinks like it's good for her to get out and be social. And like Kirsten says something to her, and she's so jumpy, and she's like, maybe we should call you Flinch instead of Flex. And so Kirsten asks her, like, who do you think will win, like, King and Queen? It's like prom or something like that, or homecoming. And she's like, I don't even know. But Kirsten is able to predict who the winners are. And when the announcement is made, they like, whoop and cheer like dogs. And she's like, we're Wildcats. Like, why is everybody like, woof, woof, woof? And so instead of a crown, they give the queen a misshapen, like, hound mask. And she puts it on, and the crowd gets even louder. We get like this little snippet of a therapist report, and it's talking about a girl named Almadia, who is Flex. And basically she was diagnosed with paranoid personality disorder, and she doesn't need to be monitored for deviance or behaviors. Like, she just needs to like work on it through therapy. So now Flex is in the gym. It's been a few weeks, and she doesn't feel right. She hasn't felt right since like homecoming. Everyone seems weird, and like she just feels super like left out, like something's going on. But she knows she's paranoid, so like she doesn't know if this is just a paranoia talking or like if something's really going on. But she like, even Kirsten doesn't talk to her now, and she's like, dang, like I wanted to be alone, but like now I feel like weird about being alone. So she's in the gym, and Chloe, the like homecoming queen, comes in looking for her, and she has her boyfriend with her. And she introduces herself, and Flex is like, I know who you are. And she's like, we don't really need to get to know each other, like we're about to graduate. And the boyfriend, who Flex knows hates her anyways, was like, that's rude. And so Chloe says, oh, Kirsten warned me that like you can be rough, which is weird because Kirsten hasn't been talking to her. So like, you're talking to me about me to other people. And she says, Kirsten didn't get to tell you all the town traditions because we don't normally tell outsiders, but like, I don't consider you an outsider. And she asks Flex, like, aren't you curious? Which she is. Chloe says there's a game that the seniors play called the Fox Hunt. And one hides and the rest of us seek. On the first night of November, the fox is released, which is one of us, and the rest of us are the hounds that chase it. And I said immediately, no. Also, like, I think this is real, like a couple like weeks or so ago, like this boy died, like very similar to this. It was like a hazing thing. Like, I don't know if it was a small town, a black boy, and like these like white guys, like I don't know if he was on a football team, they were like chasing him, and he had like an asthma attack and died.
Really?
Yeah, I saw it like somewhere, and I was like, this made me think of that, like so bad. So basically, like the boyfriend says like the winner, like whoever like catches them gets money or whatever. Everyone puts like money into the pot, and like the winner or the winning team takes the pot. And the homecoming queen picks who the fox is. And I was like, oh, you want to pick Flex. And so Flex is like, well, this explains like all the weird behavior she's been seeing. Like, she's been seeing people like pass cash around in the hallways. And like, it explains like the hound math that the queen got at homecoming. But she's like, no, I'm good. And the boyfriend's like, oh, does that mean yes? And she's like, no, it means no. And he's like, you can't say no. And Chloe says, it's an honor to be the fox. And Flex is like, okay, well then give it to someone who grew up here, who's wanted to be the fox all their life. And she says, like, well, I want you there, and you're, like, in great shape because it'll be a challenge to catch you. And so Flex is like, I'll think about it. And, like, she sees kind of, like, a weird look on Chloe's face, but then she, like, recovers quickly, and she's like, okay, well, like, it's in a week, so think about it. And her sister, Flex's sister's name is Amarantha, and I was on the ground because I said there is absolutely no way on this earth that you found Amarantha. First of all, that's a weird name. Secondly, it's a weird name for a black person, and I was like, okay, Alameda and Amarantha, but okay. So anyways, so Amarantha is basically telling her like, you know, you should try it. I want you to be more social and have fun before like high school's all over. And she asks her sister, like, have you been talking to the therapist? And her sister says, no, I would never cross that line. I just don't want you to be afraid and see you afraid. And she kind of snaps and is like, I'm not afraid. But, like, she is feeling out of sorts in her own home. So she agrees, and so now it's November 1st. And so she's like there. She has a half hour until the hounds are released. So she hears a branch crack, and then like a shadow comes toward her, but it's just Kirsten. And Kirsten says, like, Chloe doesn't know I'm here. I want to help you. I don't want to hunt you. And Kirsten doesn't break rules, so this is weird. And she's like, follow me. And she goes, oh, you're talking to me now? And Kirsten says, sorry, I've been weird. I distanced myself because I heard Chloe wanted to pick you as the fox, and I couldn't tell you, but I couldn't talk to you about it, so I didn't know what to do. And so she hears howling, and she knows that, like, the hounds have been released, basically. And Kirsten's like, oh my God, we're only halfway there. We got to hurry up. We got to get to the creek. And she says some of them have been practicing for this for years and can like navigate the woods in the dark perfectly fine. So they start hearing people talking around them, and Kirsten is stressed. Like, she is stressed the fuck out. And I'm like, Flex, you're not picking up the cues because I got it and you're not getting it. Like, come on, girl. And she's like, okay, what's going on? And she's like, she just keeps telling Flex, like, you have to keep going. Like, you can leave me. And a group finds them. It's two guys and a girl. And they have hunting rifles. So she's like, oh, okay, this is the kind of game we're playing. So the girl's like, shoot. And Kirsten cries, and she's like, I'm so sorry. And so they assume that Flex has now taken Kirsten as a hostage. And so they're like, let her go. And she's like, I will if you give me your guns. And so Kirsten's like, oh, that's clever. Maybe, like, I can save you. And she says, like, she tells Kirsten, like, if you wanted to save me, you would have told me this beforehand. And Kirsten says, well, if you make it over the water, like, they won't say another word about this. Tomorrow there'll be a whole new day. They'll never mention it again or do anything. And she's like, basically, tonight doesn't count. And so the other group is like, okay, we'll give you our guns, but they're like shouting so that people know where they're at or whatever. And Flex knows like they're lying. So they immediately start shooting at them, and she like barrel runs into them and attacks them. So she grabs the first boy and like chokes him until he like is dead basically. And the girl says, you're a monster. We'll kill you for this. And Flex says, you were going to kill me anyways. So she like hits the girl in the face with the gun that she got from the guy and like literally beats her face in. And then she gets the last boy and like kills him and takes his mask. And Flex says, how did this start? And Kirsten's like, I don't want to tell you. Like, it's not a big deal. And she goes, okay, like, it was for slaves. Like, it really was a courtesy. Basically, once a year, they would let a slave free. And basically, if the slave, like, made it across the creek, that they were, like, free. Like a free slave. I could murder you. I could kill you. You think that was going to go well? No wonder you didn't want to tell me. And Kirsten goes, oh my God, now you're going to kill me. And she says, don't follow me. And she just races towards the river. The end. And that is the end of all of them. So, thoughts?
I really enjoyed these.
Yeah, I gave it a 5 stars.
I gave it 4. Just because overall, like, the stories, I was trying to make it like a cohesive, or whatever.
I was here for vibes.
Kind of like averaging. I loved it though.
Yeah.
Loved it. Like I said previously, this is probably so far has been my favorite anthology.
Yeah, I've only ever read one other one, which is the one that we had read for Horror Book Club, and I was like, okay with it. I couldn't get into some of them, but I liked all of these. I didn't like completely dislike any of them. I definitely had like favorites over. I really liked Harvesters, the first one, and I really liked the Devil's Bayou one.
Those are my 2 favorites.
Yeah, those are my favorites. So I really did like them.
I personally wasn't the biggest fan of TMI with the flip phone one.
Yeah, that one was, and I just put that together when we talked about it, about the like circle to the guy. Like, I didn't love that one. I thought the cemetery dance party was like goofy.
Yeah.
The skittering thing was kind of weird.
I agree.
I did really like Queeniums for Greenium too.
Yeah.
That one was just like fun. I like that one.
I really like that one as well.
Yeah, like that one was so like, I could see that being like a movie, like, but she's like, you're not killing me. Like, that one was funny. Yeah. So I really like these. So, yeah, I'm glad we read it. Like, that was good. Do you have any reviews?
I do. Okay. So, So I know this one's a 4-star review, but I really like the review.
Okay.
And definitely agree with this. So Miss Becca G, anyways, said 4 stars. This anthology was amazing. I enjoyed every single story and collection and was addicted to hearing more. Why did they give it 4 stars then? I wanted more of every short.
Yes.
They were all so well crafted, that I wanted to continue listening to these creepy bedtime stories. I am excited to check out more work from the authors I have not heard of prior to this. And I completely agree. I know they're short stories, and they're supposed to be short, but, like, I wanted more of nearly all of them.
Yeah, like, I would love to see. I was so hurt when I realized this was an anthology, because that first one really got me, and I was like,
yeah,
what's going to happen in chapter 2? And I was like, oh, this is an anthology.
Mm-hmm.
I was hurt.
And... oh, there's only one review. Only one-star review. There's 5 one-star ratings, but only one. So they said, I found out most of the unagented writers that got picked for the final Black Girl anthology are in fact already established writers or newly agented writers. The anthology was created on Twitter back in 2022 for unagented writers to have a chance to be published, only to be lied to and probably have their story stolen in the process. I've also found it strange that they were asking a photo submission of you to see if you were really black or to say you're not black enough to be included. This really sucks because I put so much effort into my story only to be told it's not included. Okay, well, I guess that one doesn't count.
Yeah, that was
because that wasn't a rating of the book.
Yeah, that was like all the back end stuff.
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of these people are putting like individual ratings of like
each one.
Yeah. Okay, this one says I'm not really a short story reader, but I did enjoy some of the pieces in here. This is an important collection of work by Black writers of horror and also YA, so that's pretty terrific too. Overall, none of these stories jumped out at me or really grabbed me. But fair enough.
Yep.
I loved it though.
Same. Ditto. Okay, well, our next episode is actually our mid-year review, so I don't know, we'll probably like recap what we read so far, kind of like the end of the year. See where we are in our goals, I guess, and I don't know, we might talk about something else. So that is our next episode, but the next book we are reading is, wait a minute, our next book that we're reading is Butcher and Blackbird by Bren Weaver.
Ooh.
So, little spice, a little murder.
And you've not read it yet.
I have not.
And I have.
And we're reading it for book club because I changed my vote.
I was like, dang.
I got the notice. I got the notification that it was about to end, and I was like, I had 3 picked, and I was like, okay, which one? I was like, that one.
I was like, man, it's a tie. I went ahead and did like the spinning wheel.
Oh,
I was like,
you were gonna
so when it ends, if it's a tie, I'll go ahead and spin it.
I ruined it. It's okay. We can do Quiet Tenant too. And I put that on. A lot of times when you like make a suggestion for that, I'll just like put them on the list for us to do. So I was like, oh well. So I was like, oh,
Quiet Tenant is a good one.
Yeah. So we'll have to do that one too. But I'm like, oh, so we're reading for book club, and yes, I'm like, I mean, I know the ice cream thing, like whatever, but that doesn't. Spoilers don't bother me, so that's fine. But yeah, so that is our next book. So if you are not following us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Booktrospective, what is wrong with you? Go do it right now. Also, again, I always mention the YouTube, even though I don't post anything there, but I'm working on it. I have a backlog. I'll catch up one day. And also check out the website, booktrospective.com, because I try to keep the schedule up there. And also you can listen to episodes there. And hopefully our plan is to have more stuff on there. We're working on things. But yeah, that's all I got. Anything else?
Also leave us questions and stuff for next week. And I mean, whenever. I mean, we'll...
Anytime.
Yeah. But especially for next week's episode.
I might make a post on the socials and see if someone asks us. That would be nice.
But that's all.
All right. Bye.